Denzel Washington stands as an unyielding emblem of resolve, conscience, and belief in the shifting terrain of Hollywood. For more than 40 years, he has remained a pillar where conviction outweighed convenience, where effort mattered more than applause. He did not simply step into greatness. He reshaped what it means to carry character in a world that often rewards surrender. From the fierce moral fire of Malcolm X to the chilling menace of Training Day, from the proud unity of glory to the raw honesty of fences, his work was never about display. It was about responsibility, about carrying truth without softening its weight. Admirers see the strength. Few grasp the price that strength demanded. And now, at 70, as the years invite reflection, the question lingers quietly around him. What has this journey truly cost, and what has it given in return? Long before his name echoed across theaters and award halls, Denzel Washington was already being shaped by fracture. His childhood was not gentle. It was instructive. Born on December 28, 1954, in Mount Vernon, New York, he grew up in a working-class town pressed beneath the distant glow of Manhattan, close enough to dream, far enough to struggle. Faith filled the air, but peace did not always follow. His mother, Linus, labored tirelessly in a small beauty salon, her days swallowed by heat, chemicals, and aching hands, determined to keep her children afloat through will alone. His father, Reverend Denzel Hayes Washington Sr., ruled their home with scripture and strict order, convinced discipline was the truest form of love. Prayer marked the hours. Sermons shaped the weeks. But tenderness was rare and affection seldom spoken. Years later, Denzel would summarize his parents with a single sentence that carried quiet gravity. His mother was city, his father was country, two forces pulling in opposite directions until the strain became too great. By 14, the marriage collapsed without ceremony, leaving silence where stability once stood. He remained with his mother as his father drifted from daily life, a presence defined more by absence than connection. When death eventually closed that distance forever, Denzel would confess he did not cry. Not from indifference, but from a bond that never had space to deepen. Unmoored and restless, he wandered toward the edges of Mount Vernon, where young men chased danger to prove their worth. Many of the boys beside him disappeared into prisons and forgotten futures. He would later marvel that he escaped at all. His mother, sensing the storm before it consumed him, made a decision that felt cruel in the moment but merciful in hindsight. She sent him away to the Oakland Military Academy in New Windsor. To a teenager, it felt like exile. Cold mornings, boots striking pavement, orders cutting through the air, discipline crushing chaos with relentless certainty. He remembered the sharp smell of starch on his uniform and the look in his mother's eyes as she left him there steady, but breaking that only with time did understanding arrive. The structure he resisted became the ground he stood on. Endurance replaced impulse. Restraint overtook anger. When he returned home, the pull of the streets no longer held him. Yet the lessons of those years stayed, etched into his posture and his choices. Long before Hollywood ever noticed him, Denzel Washington had already survived his first war, turning instability into discipline and hardship into a code that would guide every step that followed. That adulthood demanded something different. Leaving Mount Vernon in the early 1970s for college did not bring relief. It brought hunger. Cold followed him through hallways and dorm rooms where broken radiators fought losing battles against winter. Some days he sat in cafeterias with nothing but coffee, pretending the scent of food could sustain him. Money vanished as fast as it came. His mother's earnings barely covered survival back home, forcing him into endless labor scrubbing floors, hauling boxes, delivering papers until his hands burned and his body aged too quickly. He did not yet know what he wanted. He only knew he needed to endure. On long walks through the city, He whispered lines from plays he had never been cast in, staring at lights that shimmered above him, beautiful and unreachable. The city did not see him. Not yet. The turning point came quietly in the summer of 1975 at a YMCA camp in Lakeville. Asked to fill an empty moment during a talent show, he stepped forward uncertainly. Laughter filled the room. Attention sharpened. And then a voice spoke with unexpected clarity. You were born to act. Something opened inside him that hunger never could. Purpose replaced confusion. He returned to school changed, committed to drama, graduating with direction instead of doubt. Training carried him west, where loneliness deepened and resolve sharpened. Rehearsing beneath flickering bulbs, meals reduced to bread and water, he clung to the belief that the words mattered even when no one watched. After a year, he returned east with a single suitcase and an unshaken will. Auditions blurred together. Rejection followed him relentlessly. Nights passed on couches and cold floors. But faith kept him standing. The first roles were modest, barely sustaining him, but they kept him visible. Progress came slowly, deliberately. Each small step carried the memory of hunger and isolation like a second spine beneath his success. For Denzel Washington, greatness was never bestowed. It was assembled piece by piece, paid for in endurance and belief. He had already survived obscurity. Now he would learn to survive being seen, comment 70, or write RIP Denzel Washington to honor them. Every new light that lifted Denzel Washington higher also stretched the shadows he carried behind him. His rise was never driven by hunger for celebrity, but by a faith tested under pressure and pain refined into purpose. The boy who once counted coins for bus fare now stood beneath the brightest lights in the world. Yet he often said the climb felt heavier at the top. Recognition arrived, but it did not arrive gently. Cry Freedom opened the door, earning his first Oscar nomination and lending his voice moral weight. Glory followed, not merely awarding gold, but defining a lifelong theme dignity earned through suffering. Freedom wrestled from fire. He once said he didn't play those men. He carried them. Malcolm X Philadelphia, the Hurricane. Each role reached deeper. Each performance stitched another scar into his craft. Belief became cinema dot by the time training day crowned him with an Oscar. The world called him untouchable. But applause hid exhaustion. Days stretched to 16 hours. Nights dissolved into endless repetition, lines spoken until they no longer sounded like dialogue but confession. Long after sets went dark, he sat alone, staring into mirrors, not searching for a star, but asking if he was still the man who began the journey. He understood that every victory extracts payment, time, sleep, peace, and sometimes certainty that one defining test came early before his name carried authority. In 1986, he was offered a role heavy with money and promise, but poisoned by compromise. The story twisted pain into spectacle, turning identity into profit. Sitting beneath harsh casting room lights, he felt the pull of a future that could betray his soul. That night, he reached out to Sidney Poitier, the man who had survived this road before him. Poitier's guidance was calm and unwavering. The first roles you choose will tell the world who you are. Denzel closed the script and walked away. Principle over speed, character over access. He would later say it was the best decision he ever made. Even though the rooms that followed were quieter and colder, he endured doubt without complaint, building a reputation that stood for something heavier than fame. He did not collect entourages. He did not chase noise. Restraint became his declaration. As his stature grew, so did his compassion. When tragedy struck New York on September 11th, he returned not as an icon, but as a son, standing amid dust and silence where faith itself had been shaken. He later said what he saw changed him people exhausted, not performing grief, simply surviving it. From that moment grew a quieter legacy. Doors opened without credit. Futures were funded without headlines. Among them was a young actor named Chadwick Boseman. When Chadwick addressed him as Sir, Denzel answered simply, "Call me brother." Years later, that word returned with unbearable weight. He gave everything, Denzel said. He was grace. Speculation followed him through the years, rumors circling without substance. He answered not with defense, but discipline. "Take care of the body to clear the mind," he said. The same structure that saved a boy still guided the man. Even his fear of heights became wisdom rather than weakness. "If there's a balcony scene, shoot it first," he joked. Awareness, not retreat. Today, Denzel Washington stands at a summit defined not by applause, but by restraint. He does not pursue greatness. He carries it, because for him, greatness was never about being seen. It was about remaining true when no one was watching. Hollywood admired his talent and integrity. But what truly set him apart was something rarer still, a love that refused to bend under time, distance, or success. That love began quietly in 1977, before trophies and headlines. When he met Pauletta Pearson on the set of Wilma, he was unknown, searching for footing. She was a classically trained pianist whose calm felt unmovable. He tried to impress her and failed. She smiled anyway. Months later, fate placed them side by side at a play in Atlanta. That was the beginning. On their first date, she paid the bill. He laughed, half amazed, half surrendered. They married on June 25, 1983, without spectacle. Just vows, faith, and two people betting on love before the world could test it. Their first apartment was small. Rent often late. Walls peeling. But music filled the space. Pauletta played hymns on a secondhand piano while Denzel studied scripts nearby. When their first child was born, he held the baby close and whispered a promise that frightened him with its weight. "I'll make you proud." Then success arrived, bringing distance with it. Projects demanded him. Locations pulled him away. Applause grew louder while home grew quieter. Pauletta became the spine of the household, carrying motherhood with patience, cooking, teaching, praying, waiting. He later admitted the truth without excuse. He worked. She raised the children. She managed fevers and early mornings alone, filling the house with music where absence pressed hardest. Sometimes he called too late. She always said they were okay. Just come home. Alone in hotel rooms, staring at ceilings, he learned a truth few admit: success has its own loneliness. In 1995, after 12 years of endurance, they renewed their vows in South Africa. Not as a celebration of perfection, but survival. Standing there, surrounded by faith and laughter, he understood something lasting. Love does not ask for flawlessness. It asks for presence. Fame tested them again in the early 2000s. One night, returning home exhausted, he found Pauletta waiting with a single light on. "I'm home," he whispered. "Then come sit," she said. No award ever taught him what those words did. Slowly, deliberately, he changed. Came home earlier. Listened longer. Prayed deeper. Drove the children to school. Learned her coffee order. Cooked Sunday breakfast. They prayed more than they argued. Faith became the glue. 4 children grew within that home: John David, Kadia, and twins Malcolm and Olivia, surrounded by music, laughter, and routine. Today, decades later, their love does not announce itself. It endures. Comment 70 or write RIP Denzel Washington to honor them. If marriage was Denzel Washington's promise to never repeat the fractures of his own childhood, fatherhood became his quiet vow to build what he never had. He resolved that his children would not grow up inside distance or silence. Yet life tests even the strongest intentions without warning. That test came in 1991, not with spectacle, but with a single sentence delivered on the set of Malcolm X. While dressed as a man preaching revolution, he was told his father, Reverend Denzel Washington Sr. was gone. No farewell. No final words. Just absence. The world saw an actor delivering one of the most powerful performances of his career. Off camera, a son stood unsure how to grieve a man who had been present in duty but distant in tenderness. His father had taught order and obligation, not conversation. Love was implied, never spoken. So when the funeral came, there were no tears. He later explained it plainly, not because love was missing, but because connection never had space to grow. In the weeks that followed, he kept working, moving through lights and lines while something inside him quietly shifted. On screen, Malcolm spoke of justice and truth. Between takes, Denzel withdrew, processing grief the only way he knew, through performance. Dialogue about fathers and faith stopped being words and became confession. Alone in his trailer, studying his reflection, he whispered a sentence that stayed with him for years. "I wish we talked more." It was not accusation. It was the ache of unfinished understanding. Time offered clarity grief could not. Slowly, he began to recognize his father's language of love, restrained, unspoken, buried beneath responsibility and scripture. The man who never said "I love you" had still built the ground his life stood on. Years later, Denzel told students that parents do not always love you the way you expect, but one day you may see it was there all along. Grief transformed into gratitude. He never said goodbye, but he learned how to say thank you through the man he chose to become. Life, in its strange mercy, offered another chance to live that lesson. On the set of The Preacher's Wife in 1996, connection arrived in an unexpected form. Whitney Houston, a voice that lifted ceilings and souls. Between takes, she hummed gospel hymns, her sound filling the space like light through stained glass. Denzel smiled, teasing her gently. "You don't need a choir," he told her. "You are the choir." She laughed, answering with warmth. They were not lovers, not family by blood. They were bound by faith and shared understanding, two people who knew what it meant to carry light under pressure. Then came a February morning in 2012 that refused to feel real. At first, he dismissed the news as rumor. Then the truth settled in. Whitney Houston was gone at 48, too young for farewell, too luminous for silence. Only months earlier, she had filmed Sparkle, a story of redemption meant to mark a return. Instead, it became a goodbye. Behind the brilliance lived exhaustion. Expectation pressed too hard. Fame demanded too much. The world celebrated her voice, but often missed her pain. At her funeral, held in the church where her gift was first discovered, choirs filled the air and grief filled the room. Cameras crowded the aisles. Denzel sat in the back, head bowed, hand still. As Amazing Grace rose, he whispered a truth that felt devastatingly familiar. She gave everything, and it cost her everything. The silence echoed the one he had known before, when love has nowhere left to go. In the weeks that followed, regret stayed quietly with him. "I wish I'd called more," he admitted. "Told her I was proud." He rarely spoke her name publicly. When he did, his voice softened, eyes drifting somewhere far away. Sometimes he said, "The ones who smile brightest are hurting most." The loss left him with a lesson carved deep: love your angels while they are still here. Years later, that lesson would return through another life. Chadwick Boseman, brilliant, disciplined, humble. As a young student, Chadwick dreamed of the stage but could not afford a summer program at Oxford. He never knew that, late one night, Denzel had quietly paid the cost. No announcement, no expectation, just belief placed into another man's future. When they eventually met, Chadwick approached him with gratitude he could barely study. "You never knew me," he said, "but you made this possible." Denzel answered simply, "That's what we're meant to do." Pass it on. At the American Film Institute tribute, Chadwick stood before the room and said words that shook the air. There is no Black Panther without Denzel Washington. Applause erupted. Denzel lowered his head, overwhelmed not by praise, but responsibility. 2 generations met in that moment. The torch offered. The flame received. What the world did not see was Chadwick's private battle. Cancer moved through his body as he moved through history. Surgeries, treatments, pain carried without witnesses. Still he arrived. Every day, every role. In August 2020, the truth struck without mercy. Chadwick Boseman, gone at 43, the words blurred as Denzel stood still. He hadn't known. He gave everything, Denzel said softly. He was grace. At the memorial, no cameras stood. Only music and loss. A choir sang, "Take my hand, precious Lord," the same hymn that once closed Whitney's farewell. Denzel stood in the back, head bowed. Angels never tell you they're leaving. He whispered, "Comment or rate RIP Chadwick Boseman to honor them. Comment or rate RIP Whitney Houston to honor them. Comment or write RIP Reverend Denzel Hayes Washington Sr. to honor them." Perhaps no loss carved as deeply into Denzel Washington's spirit as the passing of his mother, Linus. She was not only the woman who gave him life, but the force that preserved it. Her love was not loud. It was decisive. She stood between her son and the streets that had already claimed so many boys like him. He never forgot the moment that defined everything. 14 years old, furious, afraid, standing in their small Mount Vernon apartment as she folded his clothes into a worn suitcase. Gospel music played softly nearby. "You're sending me away?" he asked, anger shielding fear. She did not raise her voice. "I'm sending you forward," she said. "The world is going to try to break you. Don't let it dot at the time. He believed she was abandoning him. Only later did he understand she was saving his life. Every disciplined choice he ever made traced back to that moment. Even after fame arrived, he called her every Sunday. Sometimes she scolded him for being late. Sometimes she simply listened. Her faith anchored him when Hollywood grew restless. She wanted little, only that he walk right dot when the calls stopped. The silence felt unnatural. He poured 2 cups of coffee by habit. One remained untouched. He never said she died. He said she went home, because to him, her presence never left. Her voice still guided him in quiet moments. The ache was not just absence. It was knowing he could never again say thank you and hear her answer. At dawn, he still rose early, brewed coffee, opened his Bible, and read the Psalms she loved. Sometimes memory blurred the words. He closed the book, looked toward the light, and smiled. "You were right, Ma," he whispered. God did have me dot after losing the woman who shaped his survival. Time began to answer back through his own body. Not with fear, but truth. Stiffness in his knees. Ache in his hands. These were not injuries. They were reminders. For decades, he had spoken the language of endurance. Now, in his 70s, he chose a different fluency. Aging, he said calmly, is not losing strength. It is gaining peace. In 2013, a routine heart procedure forced him to stop. Hospital lights, steady monitors, the sound of his own heartbeat, something he had taken for granted. "My mother used to tell me, 'Take care of your heart,'" he whispered. Recovery slowed him into reverence. When he stepped back into daylight, gratitude outweighed ambition. Family faces mattered more than scripts. Silence mattered more than applause. He returned to work with intention. Movement slower, presence sharper. He no longer fought time. He walked beside it. Mornings began with scripture. Nights ended in stillness. He stopped chasing youth and chose stewardship. Standing in the mirror, tracing the faint scar on his chest, he smiled. "That's not a scar," he said. "That's a reminder. Today, as the sun rises over Beverly Hills, Denzel Washington walks through his garden, breathing deeply. Time is no longer his enemy. He gives thanks not for what was taken, but for what remains. Faith, peace, discipline. Grace.comment or write RIP Washington to honor them. At 70. Denzel Washington stands not just as an artist, but as proof of what endurance compounds into over time. His wealth was built slowly, deliberately, across decades of work rooted in restraint. He chased permanence, not noise. His homes are sanctuaries, not showcases. His indulgence has always been time to prepare, mentor, listen, and return home. Family remains the center. 4 children raised with accountability and freedom. Giving done quietly. Mentorship offered without ceremony. Today he works less, but with deeper purpose. He no longer pursues success. He protects meaning. Denzel Washington did not rise from nothing by abandoning values. He carried them upward. And if his life has ever strengthened your resolve or reminded you what real success looks like, honor him not with noise, but with respect. Comment 70 or write RIP Denzel Washington to honor them. Asterisk. Time has a way of clarifying what noise once obscured. In the later seasons of his life, Denzel Washington no longer measures days by call sheets or box office numbers. He measures them by alignment, by whether his actions still agree with the code forged in scarcity, discipline, and faith. He wakes early, not from urgency, but from habits shaped by decades of purpose. Scripture before sunrise, silence before speech, a long walk before the world begins to ask anything of him. The man who once carried the weight of entire films now carries something lighter and heavier at once, responsibility without ego. He has learned that legacy is not a monument you build at the end. It is the accumulation of choices made when no one is watching, saying no when yes would be easier, walking away when staying would pay more, listening when speaking would impress. In rooms filled with younger artists, he does not perform wisdom. He offers it sparingly, often only when asked. He tells them to protect their name, to be careful what they agree to remember that talent opens doors, but character decides which rooms you can stay in. Many will quote him. Fewer will follow him. He understands that too. Music, the industry still calls. The roles still arrive. But he chooses with restraint, drawn to stories that carry moral gravity rather than momentum. He directs when the message requires patience. He produces when voices need shelter. He steps back when stepping aside protects the work. There's no urgency left to prove anything. He has already stood in the fire. What remains is stewardship. Of craft, of influence, of time. At home, the rhythms are simple. Conversation around the table. Music drifting through rooms. Laughter that does not need an audience. He watches his children move through their own lives, grateful that they know who they are without borrowing his shadow. He watches his wife move through the house with quiet certainty, the same calm that steadied him before the world ever learned his name. Their partnership no longer explains itself. It simply holds. Music. When asked what success means now, he does not speak of trophies or numbers. He speaks of peace, of sleeping well, of showing up when it matters, of leaving a room better than he found it. He understands that the greatest reward of discipline is not power, but freedom, the freedom to choose rest, to choose silence, to choose presence over pursuit. There are moments, standing alone as evening settles, when memory returns unannounced, faces, voices, absences that taught him how to love louder and sooner. He does not rush those moments away. He lets them pass through, offering gratitude instead of resistance. He knows now that grief is not a way to escape, but a teacher that sharpens compassion. That love, once given, never disappears. It only changes shape. So he moves forward without hurry. a man reconciled with time, a life no longer defined by ascent but by balance. The discipline that once kept him alive now keeps him grounded. The faith that once carried him through hunger now carries him through abundance. And the integrity that built his name now protects his peace. Denzel Washington stands as living testimony that endurance, practiced daily, becomes grace. That greatness does not require spectacle, only consistency, and that the truest measure of a life is not how loudly it is applauded, but how quietly it remains faithful. Comment 70 or write RIP Denzel Washington to honor them. There is a stillness that settles only after a life has been tested from every side. In that stillness, Denzel Washington now stands with clarity earned, not granted. He understands that seasons change not to diminish us, but to reveal what remains when momentum fades. What remains for him is simple and immovable: discipline, faith, and responsibility carried without announcement. He has seen what speed does to people, how it confuses urgency with importance, how it convinces the talented to trade patience for applause. So he slows the world by slowing himself. He arrives prepared. He leaves on time. He honors commitments quietly. In conversations, he listens more than he speaks. When advice is asked, he offers it plainly without decoration. Guard your name. Protect your time. Do the work when it's hard, not when it's loud. Music. He knows now that influence is most powerful when it is invisible. Checks written without signatures. Doors opened without witnesses. Encouragement offered in private moments when doubt feels unbearable. He never announces these acts because he remembers hunger too well to perform generosity. He remembers obscurity too clearly to confuse service with display. When he reflects on the arc of his life, he does not speak of miracles. He speaks of habits. Getting up when it would be easier to stay down. Showing up prepared when no one expected him. Choosing principle when compromise promised speed. Faith, practiced daily, not proclaimed loudly. These were not grand gestures. They were small decisions repeated until they became destiny. At night, when the house settles and the noise of the world recedes, he sometimes returns to the words that carried him through scarcity and success alike. He reads slowly now, not to conquer pages, but to let meaning arrive on its own time. He understands that wisdom does not rush. It waits until you are quiet enough to receive it. The legacy he leaves is not confined to film or fortune. It lives in the steadiness of those he helped stand, in the restraint of those who watched him choose patience, in the courage of those who learned that saying no can be an act of faith. He did not build a monument. He built a method, one that can be followed long after the lights dim. So when the world asks what remains of a life lived fully, the answer is not a number, a title, or an image frozen in time. It is alignment. A man at peace with the road he walked and the pauses he honored. A man who learned that endurance, when guided by faith, becomes grace. Comment 70 or write RIP Denzel Washington to honor them. There is a moment that arrives only after a long road has been walked, when striving gives way to stewardship. Denzel Washington now lives inside that moment, not withdrawn from the world, but no longer pulled by it. He understands that the truest authority comes not from command, but from example sustained over time. The habits that once kept him alive in obscurity now keep him whole in abundance. He speaks often of preparation, not as ambition, but as respect for the craft, for collaborators, for the audience that gives their time. He reminds younger artists that talent may open a door once, but discipline keeps it from closing. He warns them gently that shortcuts always send an invoice later. He does not dramatize the lesson. He has lived it long enough to know it needs no performance. Asterisk, asterisk, in the long arc of a life shaped by intention, there comes a point when striving gives way completely to understanding. Denzel Washington stands firmly in that space now, not removed from the world, but no longer negotiating with it. He knows who he is without explanation. He knows what matters without debate. The urgency that once pushed him forward has softened into certainty, music. He reflects often on the quiet truth that most people never hear. Clearly enough, greatness is not built in moments of recognition, but in seasons of obscurity, in showing up when no one is watching, in choosing preparation over praise, in holding to principles when compromise would be faster. These lessons were not learned from comfort. They were earned through hunger, loneliness, discipline, and faith practiced daily. Music, the road behind him is long, marked by sacrifices few ever see. Missed moments, silent burdens, decisions that close doors before opening others. He does not romanticize them. He honors them, because each one protected something essential: his name, his family, his peace. He understands now that not every opportunity is a blessing, and not every delay is a loss. Music, what he values most today, cannot be measured. A morning that begins in stillness, a conversation without interruption, a prayer spoken without urgency, time shared without distraction. These are the rewards that do not fade. They do not rust. They do not disappear when the lights go out. They remain. Music, he is aware that time moves differently now, that each year carries more weight than the last. But there is no fear in that awareness, only respect. Respect for the body that carried him this far, respect for the mind that learned when to push and when to rest, respect for the spirit that refused to harden under pressure. Music, he has learned that life is not asking to be conquered. It is asking to be understood, to be lived deliberately, to be met with humility rather than control. This understanding has freed him. He no longer measures success by what he gains, but by what he preserves. Music, so he continues forward, not chasing relevance, not resisting time, simply living in alignment with the values that shaped him from the beginning. Discipline without cruelty, faith without performance, strength without arrogance, peace without apology. Music, Denzel Washington remains not because he demands attention, but because his life offers instruction. A reminder that endurance, practiced faithfully, becomes grace, and that a life built on principle does not fade when the spotlight moves on. It settles into something far rarer, meaning comment 70 or write RIP Denzel Washington to honor them. Music, there is a quiet authority that belongs only to those who have nothing left to prove. Denzel Washington carries that authority now, not as a posture, but as a presence. It shows in the way he moves through rooms without announcing himself, in the way he listens before responding, in the way he pauses before deciding. Time has refined him, not reduced him. Music, he understands that the world is loud because it is uncertain, that urgency often masks fear. So he refuses to rush. He prepares. He considers. He acts when alignment feels right and steps back when it does not. This patience was not always natural. It was trained into him through years of scarcity, discipline, and faith tested under pressure. What once kept him alive now keeps him steady. Music, when he looks back, he does not divide his life into successes and failures. He sees instruction. Each closed door taught him restraint. Each long wait taught him endurance. Each loss taught him presence. He recognizes now that even the painful chapters were shaping tools, carving space for wisdom to take root. Nothing was wasted. Music, he has seen fame arrive too early and leave too fast. He has watched talent collapse under attention it was never trained to carry. That is why he speaks so carefully to those who come after him. He tells them that visibility is not validation, that applause fades faster than character, that the only thing that truly lasts is how you live when the crowd is gone. Music, at home, the rhythm is unhurried. Mornings open slowly, evenings close gently. Conversations matter more than schedules. He has learned that being present is a skill, one that must be practiced with the same discipline as any craft. He practices it daily, with his wife, with his children, with himself. Music, faith continues to guide him, not as ritual, but as grounding. He prays not to be elevated, but to remain clear. Clear about who he serves, clear about what he owes, clear about what he can let go. This clarity has become his greatest protection. It shields him from bitterness, from regret, from the temptation to measure himself by standards that no longer serve him. Music. As years pass, he carries gratitude where ambition once lived. Gratitude for survival, gratitude for correction, gratitude for time still given. He knows now that longevity is not guaranteed by strength alone, but by humility, the willingness to listen when the noise of the world finally softens. What remains is not applause, but alignment. Denzel Washington lives there now, in a space earned through decades of measured choices and unwavering discipline. He understands that life does not reward intensity alone. It rewards consistency, the kind that shows up early, stays prepared, and leaves nothing undone. He no longer mistakes movement for progress. He listens for direction, then moves with intention. He has seen how easily talent can be consumed by urgency, how quickly promise can be diluted by distraction. So he models another way, a way that honors craft without worshiping it, a way that allows ambition to exist without ruling the soul. In rooms filled with expectation, he remains grounded. In moments that invite spectacle, he chooses restraint. His authority is quiet because it does not need reinforcement. He teaches without lecturing, mentors without announcing, gives without collecting credit. These acts are not strategy, they are habit. He learned long ago that generosity performed for witnesses loses its meaning. So he keeps it private, protected, and purposeful. The impact is not diminished by silence. It is multiplied by it. Faith remains his compass, not as decoration, but as practice. Prayer before pressure, reflection before reaction, gratitude before demand. He understands now that belief is not proven in triumph, but in patience. Not in certainty, but in trust maintained when outcomes remain unseen. This steadiness has become his refuge. As years accumulate, he carries them lightly, not denying their weight, but honoring their lessons. He does not chase youth. He cultivates wisdom. He does not outrun time. He walks beside it, each step measured, each pause respected. The discipline that once saved him now sustains him. When asked what endures, he does not speak of legacy as something left behind. He speaks of example as something lived forward, of showing what is possible when integrity is not negotiated, when values are not seasonal, when success does not require surrendering self-doubt. So the narrative continues, not with urgency, but with grace. A life lived in agreement with its own principles. A man who learned that strength refined by faith becomes peace. And peace, once earned, becomes the greatest success of all. Comment 70 or write RIP Denzel Washington to honor them. When asked about fear, he does not deny it. He acknowledges it. Fear sharpened into awareness. Awareness shaped into wisdom. He learned that courage is not loud. It is steady. It shows up early. It leaves with gratitude. It knows when to step forward and when to step back. He no longer confuses motion with meaning. In quieter hours, memory returns without demand. The sound of his mother's voice correcting him with love. The echo of his father's silence finally understood. The laughter of friends and mentors who shaped him. The absence of those who left too soon. These memories do not weaken him. They anchor him. They remind him that life is not measured by how much you hold, but by how carefully you carry it. He has learned that peace is built, not found. Built through consistency, through prayer when answers are delayed, through restraint when opportunity tempts, through returning home even when the world insists you stay visible. He has chosen presence over permanence, knowing that what truly lasts is rarely loud, that there is no urgency now to define himself again. He is comfortable being known and equally comfortable being unseen. He walks the same path daily, not because routine confines him, but because it frees him. Each step affirms a truth he earned the long way. Discipline is not restriction. It is protection. So the story does not end with triumph or farewell. It settles into balance, a life aligned, a man at peace with time, faith, and responsibility. Denzel Washington remains not as a monument, but as a measure of what patience can build, of what integrity can preserve, of what grace can become when practiced every day.